He will sprinkle on the one who's being purified from the leprosy 7 times, v'tiaro, and he will become purified. V'shilach es hatzipor achaya al pnei hasoder. After you, the bird, together with this bundle of the acacia wood and the hyssop grass and the wool, which is dyed red, you send the bird out into the wild. The chibes hamitaris begodam v'gilachas kol soro. The one who's being purified, he immerses his clothing into the mikveh, including himself. V'gilachas kol soro. He shaves off all the hair off his body. Rochatz b'mayim v'toyer. And he immerses himself in the water, and he's purified. Now he's coming into the camp. But during this period of time, Rashi says, he's not permitted to cohabit with his wife during this period of time. The Oel is always the wife. So we find he shaves his hair twice. Right? Again. And then he immerses himself after 7 days. Again, shaves off all the hair off his body. As Rosho, as a kono. And here Torah is being very specific when it refers to all the hair of his head, his beard, his eyebrows, Gabos Inov, Veskol Soro, Yigaleach, and all the hair on the body he removes. V'chibes Begodov, as Begodov, V'rochatz Psor B'mayim V'toyer. Again, his clothing are contaminated. They have to be immersed, and he has to be immersed. V'toyer, Rashi, Skol Soro, Klal Prano, Klal Lovi, Komokum Kino Sar V'nira. It's only a location where there's accumulation of hair and it's seen. But let's say under the arm, which it's seen and not seen because the arm is usually, it's lifted and lowered. That hair does not be removed. The hair only that's revealed, it's obvious. A lot of lengthy or Chaim HaKodesh over here. We're not going to discuss it. We had mentioned yesterday that his galoch in last week's reading, the gimel is large. What is the reason why it's large? Was the 3 times you have to actually remove the hair we find by the Levim, when the Levim were initiated to replace the Bechorim to be the officiants in the Mishkan, that initiation process, they had to remove all the hair off their bodies. The Metzora has to remove all the hair off his body. And the Nazir, it's only the hair on his head. He has to shave, not the hair of his whole body. But that's the Gilach. That is his Kaloch. The Gimel is large to indicate the 3 times the hair has to be removed. We've mentioned in the past that in name of the Pirkei Rebbe Lezer, that the hair was only an outgrowth of the Eitz Hadas. The Pirkei Rebbe Lezer says that before Adam ate of the Eitz Hadas, he had no hair on his body. The hair only was a result of the evil in the fruit. It was an expression of that evil. That's the hair. So whenever it comes to the ultimate level of purification, we had said that at the time of eating Eitz Hadas, the snake was punished and it was afflicted with leprosy. That's why every snake has rings on its skin. That's leprosy. Adam, it was pronounced, he was subject to death. The foreskin grew and hair grew on his body. And he was cursed through the sweat of his brow, he will eat bread. That's the prerequisite to what? For one, earning his livelihood. You have to meet the prerequisite of by the sweat of your brow, you should eat bread. The Mesil Sasharim, in the chapter of Chelkei Chasidus and the various aspects of Chasidus, he writes that although Mizonos Shalom Tzuvim Rosh Hashanah, one's yearly stipend is pre-designated from Rosh Hashanah, although it's there, but to be able to be eligible to receive it, you have to meet the prerequisite of B'zeh Sapech Toch Alechem. It's only by the sweat of your brow. When you reach that point, you took initiative that it's by the sweat of your brow, then Hashem releases the pre-designated stipend to the person. But that was due to Adam's eating of the Eitz Hadas. Only then. It's very interesting. We had mentioned many times in the Chinuch that, and he says it by the prohibition of extinguishing the fire on the Mizbeach. It says, Eish al Mizbeach tukad lo sichber. The fire has to be continuously burned on the Mizbeach. You're not permitted to extinguish it. And that's why a number of times during the day, they had to put wood on the Mizbeach. Although there was a spiritual fire which descended from Shemayim, from heaven, which consumed and burnt everything on the Mizbeach, but to conceal that fire, which was a spiritual fire, you had to add wood. Because he says, because if a person would see that ongoing miracle of the spiritual fire, it would undermine the ability for one to have choice. Because it would be so obvious, Hashem's presence, it would undermine one's choice. One would have no choice. As a result of that, it has to be concealed. And he says by Kriyas Yamsuf, we discuss that at the Seder. Why does the Torah tell us that before the sea split in the morning, there was a gale wind, forceful wind blowing all night? Because if one wants to deny, as obvious as the miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf was, it's almost undeniable. But if a person wants to be in a state of denial, he's able to attribute it to the fierce wind that blew all night. That ultimately contributed to the splitting of the sea. It was not fully Hashem split it. There was some kind of something in the natural order which brought about that change in nature. That's the chinuch. So Hashem always presents things where it's not irrefutably obvious, because that would take away man's choice to see it as he chooses to see it. That's the chinuch. So I'm saying it's very interesting. Why, through one's initiative, why is that a prerequisite to receive what you're supposed to receive? By the sweat of your brow. By the sweat of your brow, you'll eat bread. Why is that the prerequisite? If Hashem predetermines every year one's yearly stipend, why only B'zeh Sapechem is that the prerequisite? You have to take that initiative to get the stipend. If a person would naturally, with not contributing to any degree to earning his livelihood, then it's obvious. Why do you exist like in the Midbar? In the Midbar, people would go out every day and gather in the man. And it's interesting, what Chazal tell us, the tzaddikim, when they went out to gather the man, was literally at the doorstep. The middle road people had to go further out. The Rishoyim had to go way out to bring in the man. That's one difference between the different classifications of Jews. The tzaddik was right out at his doorstep. The middle road Jew had to go a little further out, down the street, and the person who was classified as Rosh, he had to go way out. He had to take a greater degree of initiative. The tzaddik, the man was edible without any level of processing. He didn't have to mill it, didn't have to grind it, nothing. As it was, He would pick it up, peel off the outer cover, and he would eat it. It was fully edible. Anything it should take on that level of nourishment or food, taste, it became that. The others who were not at that level, they had to take some level of initiative to process it, to bring about its level of edibility. So the closest thing to Adam Kodem Achet, where there's no need for initiative to make food edible. Before the Chet, that was the Tzaddikim. The Tzaddikim, they all just had to pick it up, and it was edible, fully edible. The mediocre people, the middle road people, they had to take a greater degree of initiative. They had to go out, process it slightly. The Rishoyim, because of the way they chose to live their lives, to see it the way they want to see it, they had to go far out, greater degree of initiative, and it needed full processing to make it edible. What's the understanding? A person who made choices in his life to be the tzaddik. Gemara says in Makos, whatever path you choose to walk, Hashem will assist you on that path. The tzaddik will achieve this special level of tzaddik in the midbar. That means he wants to see it right. Through his many initiatives, he wants to see it right. When you see it right, Hashem allows you to see it right. You walk out the door, step out your door, you find it right there. It's amazing. No effort. You pick it up, edible, fully edible, without any degree of preparation. Immediately, sing Hashem's praises. Everything is Hashem. The one who vacillates, the middle road Jew, it's not so simple. He doesn't have that level of clarity. He has to take some degree of initiative, a slight degree of preparation. For him, it's not so simple, but it's pretty clear. With a small degree of effort, he can see it right. The Russia who chooses to see it the way he wants to see it, for him, he has to go way out there, full degree of effort, and then he has to first start processing it. Otherwise, it's not edible for him. So you see, the path you want to walk, that's the path you take. That's what it is. The curse of Zesa Pechotochalechem, by the sweat of your brow, you'll eat bread. That was due because Adam had chosen to do it the way he wanted to do it. Before he ate of that Eitz Hadas, Hashem says it's all available to you. Fully edible. No efforts. Once he ate of the Eitz Hadas, which created this lack of clarity, so the setting has to be a contributing setting to that lack of clarity. You have to take initiative, and it has to be the sweat of your brow. So you ask a person, why did you earn what you earned this year? You realize, spent so many hours in the office, I had to travel, and I brought in so much to the company. Therefore, I earned the bonus. Of course, Hashem allowed it to be, gave me those opportunities. But reality-wise, as the Chovos HaLevavos says, your effort, your initiative has nothing to do with the degree of success you have. If you have sufficient bitochon, faith in Hashem, any level of initiative, as long as you meet the criteria of Lechem, you will receive what you're meant to receive. So what's Lechem? Because since you have to take that degree of initiative by the sweat of your brow, automatically that creates this question. I'm also a contributing factor to my success. But that contributes to the Bechira issue. I always say, a person's truly a tzaddik, and you ask him to give tzedakah. For a tzaddik, what's considered zeh sapecha? Anything that detracts him from avodas Hashem is a zeh sapecha. He's eating bread by the sweat of his brow. If he has to take off time, remember I told the story about the Chofetz Chaim, that the Panovich Rov learned for 3 years with Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, Zechat Tzaddik Levracha, both of them. And they were studying something, and they came across a certain sefer which the Be'er Halacha mentions regarding a certain issue, and they wanted to see what he quotes inside the sefer itself. So they figured they go walk over to the Chofetz Chaim's house in Radin. It must have been 2, 3 in the morning, and they go, the lights are on. So they knocked gently on the door. Chofetz Chaim opens the door. They said, we came to ask the Rebbe. He mentioned something, invites them in. Sefer, he quotes. So they're sitting there. He says, I want to explain you something. That Sefer where I quoted there, I never owned the Sefer. I borrowed it and I studied it. And I haven't seen that Sefer for, I don't know, for 60 years. And when I recorded it was from memory. And then he looks at his bookshelf and he has very few Svarim on his bookshelf. And as he looks at it, he gives he groans and moans. So he says to them, he says, I want to explain this. He says, people say time is money. Famous word from Chofetz Chaim. He says, they have it backwards. That's what they say in America, or the world says, time is money. There's no money is time. If you have money, you have time. You're able to invest your whole life in the study of Torah. But if you have no money, Torah, then it costs you. Then you have to take off time from your studies to earn what you need. That's what he says. The tzaddik, every moment he has, if he has to take off time to provide for himself, he sees that as giving up. Giving up. So if the tzaddik, his level of zeis hapecha is at what level? Any amount of distraction from where he wants to be is called zeis hapecha. So all of a sudden now he gets his yearly stipend, where he barely took any effort. And then he's always singing Hashem's praises. Why? He's always singing Hashem's praises because whatever he has is miraculous. He did nothing for it, and Hashem delivers it on the silver platter. The person who's not at that level, what's zeis hapecha? Time doesn't mean anything. By him, time is money. So he spends 15 hours in the office. He travels and is away from his family all week. That's his zeis hapecha. Now you ask him for charity. Person says, sorry. They said, don't you realize it's all God-given? God-given. This cost me a pound of flesh. I don't see my kids only on weekends, this and that. Hashem gave it to me. Of course, he could have denied me. But of course, I'm a self-earner. That person doesn't see it as an endowment from Hashem. And he just had to open the safe and take it out of the safe. The tzaddik, it's miraculous. He's always singing Hashem's praises. That's what it's about. The whole concept of covering is concealment. We spoke about the foreskin. It's an expression of the evil of Eitzadas. Hair covers. The skin is covered with hair. The head is covered with hair. That's what it is. Tzoras. Naturally, leprosy, these lesions not supposed to be on the skin. The tzoras is a derivative of what? Of the evil. Of what? Because speech is an endowment through the neshama, meant to be fully invested in spirituality. This man abused misappropriation of speech on a negative level, creates covering. It's an expression of that. Chutz lamachne, he becomes a pariah. He becomes a non-entity. He's detached from Klal Yisrael. So the zeis hapecha is such a smokescreen of the reality. It prevents us from really, even if we believe, you understand, you still have to take initiative. That degree of initiative creates that level of ambiguousness. It's not clear, black and white. To be able to internalize it, it's literally a life's work. We have the 13 tenets of Jewish belief. And you say it, and you believe it. Every one of them. Hashem knows our actions. Hashem, due to that, determines what degree we deserve reward and what degree we deserve to be punished. We say it, we believe it. And if you learn the Ramban in Torah Sa'odom, that one moment of Gehenim is what is more painful, a nanosecond, than all the sufferings of Iyov. So if you believe it without a question, how do we ever sin? Why we never always, we should have a level of alertness and be fully invested if that's the reality. Schar ba'al maleko. Havizor mitzvah b'chamur, when you start studying in Pirkei Avos after Pesach. Be careful with even an ordinary mitzvah because you can't fathom the schar of a mitzvah. You win the lottery. $1 million, you get excited. You put a penny in the tzedakah box. The reward for that, you can't fathom. And to tell you this, so why are we fully invested in our spirituality? The answer is because we're still physical beings. To internalize it to that level, that it should be like that $1 billion check, which you don't even have to cash. They'll bring you the cash to your home. No effort. We can't internalize it to bring it to that level of clarity. It's not real time. You have to experience in real time to be able to respond and to be so fully invested. There's always, Moshe Rabbeinu was nachnu mo. There was no trace of himself. So for him, there was no barriers. For us, there's plenty of the nachnu, plenty of ourselves. And all, as much as there is of ourselves, which is a lack of humility, although we're not talking about arrogance, that blockage doesn't allow us to fully absorb and internalize and turn that into reality as the sun shining is reality. Rameir Simcha explains when it says Kofim Har Kagigas at Sinai, it's really a metaphor. That's the way he explains it. He says the reason why the Jews accepted the Torah at Sinai, there was such a level of clarity that we were no longer subject to the evil of the Eitz Hadas. We have no choice. So choice is when you assume there's no alternative. There was no alternative. That was at such an absolute level. So we have no choice. He presented it in a context, we have no choice. So therefore, the Kabbalah Torah was considered deficient. For him, we had choice, and we chose to say, to reaffirm that acceptance. That's the difference between Sinai and that. But again, because of the level of clarity that we literally internalized it as if we were not human beings. We were like spiritual beings. That means God took away your choice. You had no choice. I said, there was somebody had written a book during World War II. He was a chaplain. I don't remember if he was a Jew or non-Jew. The book was called No Atheists in the Foxhole. I said, there's no atheists in the foxhole. If you'd be in a foxhole, and I would give you a tehillim to pray to Hashem to save your life, would you use the tehillim? Would you pray? He says, definitely I would pray. But I said to him, but you don't believe in anything. He says, what do I have to lose? What do I have to lose? I'll pray. And I said, if you come out of the foxhole alive after you've said the tehillim, would you attribute it to the saying of tehillim? He says, no. Because he needs empirical evidence that it was God who said. Everything's empirical. You got it? In the foxhole, he'll pray his heart out that God should save him. But when he comes out alive, he doesn't attribute it to that. It's not so simple. In the foxhole, you have almost absolute clarity. When the bombs are falling, and I was just thinking, when the missiles came in, Motzoi Shabbos to Israel, at those moments, if Chas v'Sholom, God forbid, it would have happened as the Iranians wanted it to happen. It would have been disastrous, catastrophic. And the people, it's a miracle what happened. When the fear was, when they were coming in and the sirens were going off, people ran, they were frantic, they took tillims, they were praying and this and that. Maybe they even made commitments at that moment. Once the danger passes, not so simple. I used to tell the story, it's a joke, that this person, he was fleeing from the enemy. And he finally comes to cross a ravine. It's about a $2,000 foot drop, and the bridge was destroyed. And the only way he could get it to the other side, he takes a narrow pole and he extends it across the ravine, and he has to walk very gingerly across this log, because if he loses his balance, he falls to his death. Okay? And he's a believing Jew, especially now. He makes a $10,000 commitment to charity, that if he makes it to the other side, he gives $10,000 to the tzedakah. Okay? He starts going, things are going well, and he's nearly at the other side, and he thinks to himself for a moment. Before he puts his foot on the other side, he says, $10,000 is a lot of money. Maybe I was too hasty. The moment he has that thought, the log is a jolt, and he nearly loses his balance. He says, God, I'm just joking. I'm only joking with you. I'll keep my commitment. But once you're off on the other side, until you pay the commitment, you have every reason to know maybe I was too hasty and this and that. What happened? When you're going across that ravine, when you're not going to make it, you don't make it to the other side, you make any level of commitment. And you mean it. All of a sudden, later, when you're in safe territory, it's not so simple. And that's due to who we are. We're physical beings. Giving means I have less. So it's not so easy to give. And unless you give naturally. Even if the problem wouldn't exist, you would give. Okay. Pasuk Lamed Gimel Perek Yudalit. V'yidaber Hashem el Moshe v'Aaron le'emor ki savo el Eretz Canaan. Asher ani nosei lochem la'achuza, which I am giving to you as a portion. It should be your portion. V'nosati nega tzaras beveis Eretz Chazashem. I will place this leprous discoloration, as we will explain, in your homes, in the land of your portion. Tzaras batim, the discolorations of houses, only have this level of effect only in Eretz Yisrael. If something happens similar in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, has no meaning, no value whatsoever. This is only in Eretz Yisrael. It's called Tumas. It's Nigi Batim, the discolorations, the leprosy of the houses. So take a look at Rashi. Lamed Dalid. He's informing them that ultimately they're going to be these negoim, this leprosy of the houses. Why? The Amorites, they had hidden treasures of gold in the walls of the houses. The 40 years that we were in the desert, they hid all their wealth in the walls. And as a result of this nega, of this leprosy, you have to dismantle the house, destroy the house, and when you destroy the house, you come upon the treasures they had hidden. Otherwise, you would never realize they're there. But because you have to destroy the house, you will come upon that treasure. Okay? It's interesting. The Medrash tells us that initially, if not for the Chet Meraglim, we were meant to go into Eretz Yisrael immediately. So what did the 7 nations of Canaan do? It was scorched earth. They burnt everything. They destroyed the houses. They cut down the vineyards. They destroyed the orchards. They filled in the wells. That when we come in, we're going to come into a location of total devastation. We should not benefit from what they did. So what happens? So Hashem says, but I promise my children they're coming into a land of Eretz Zavas Chalud Vosh, Batim Maleim Kol Tuf, houses that are filled with all kinds of goodness, wealth. I will bring them into this destroyed location. My promise will not be there. So what does Hashem do? He puts us on hold 40 years. Let them rebuild, replant, So when you come in after 40 years, everything, you're ready for real time. This is the Midrash, mentioned on Chuma. Therefore, so it's interesting. The Cheta Meraglim, Hashem only gave us that test because they went and did what they did. As a result of that, now things are not going to be in place when we come. He gave us a challenge and we failed the challenge. And because we failed the challenge, there was a 40-year delay. During this 40-year delay, they rebuilt. What happened after 40 years? We're ready to come in again. You know what they said to Canaanim? We only make a mistake once. As we made the mistake the first time, we thought they were coming, we destroyed everything. We're not going to take a chance and make the same mistake over. Everything's going to remain intact. However, whatever we could conceal, we'll conceal, just in case they do come. That's why they hit everything in the walls. They did not destroy the houses and cut down the vineyards and the orchards. This is the background on this. That's why they hid the wealth in the walls. But the obvious question is, later we read, why is the Nigi Batim? Why is the leprosy? Whose house is destroyed? A person who's a non-giving person. A person, his empty and his level of sorayim, he's not a giving person. He doesn't want to share what he has with others. So what happens? Person comes to him and says, can I borrow something? A garment, a pot, any item. And the person says, I wish I could. I wish I could lend you, but unfortunately, I don't have it. And that's his modus operandi. Whoever comes, I wish I could, but I'm sorry, I don't have it. What happens when the Kohen pronounces the house to be leprous? The Torah tells us he takes everything out of the house, puts it in public view, and then the Kohen pronounces the house Tomei, and the house is destroyed. So what is the Torah telling you? In all these years, you've been telling people you don't have it because you're a not-giving person. So what am I going to do? We're going to destroy your house and show the world who you really are. That whatever you said you didn't have, you do have, and you're publicly embarrassed to learn a lesson. So it's a punishment. And here the Torah tells us that when you come to the land, you're going to find dismantled the house, destroyed, and you can find the wealth, the treasures that win by the Amorites. Seems to be there's a windfall over here. Here the Torah tells us it's due to your miserliness. You're a miser, not willing to share. And here it says it's a gift from Hashem. I mean, how do we reconcile both things? Why is a person non-giving? Why is a person a miser? You have so much. Why don't you share it? Sodom was known, the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin, why was Sodom destroyed? Not because they violated the 7 Noahide laws. Because the pasuk says they did not extend their hand to the poor. They had tremendous wealth. It was a capital crime to give charity in Sodom. But what did they do? In Sodom, poor people would come and they would give, each person would give a very large gold coin to the poor man. And he would engrave on the gold coin his name. What was the point? Because if the poor man sees he has such a windfall, do you think he's going to take a break to eat or drink or take the little bit of money and leave town, the few gold coins? He has all this time. He'll gather till sundown. He'll have a sack full of gold coins. It comes to the end of the day. He's parched. He's fatigued. He needs water. He needs food. He knocks on the door. He says, could you give me some water? He says, sorry. No water, no food. He says, I'm willing to pay for it. We don't sell water. We don't sell food. By the time he gets to the outskirts of Sodom, he dies of hunger and thirst. Everybody goes, reclaims his coin, because each coin is engraved. So in terms of their conscience, we gave charity. He was greedy, this poor man. He wanted to take it all in. That's why he died. That's the Gemara in Sanhedrin. That's how in their minds, they were able, through their warped way of seeing it, they didn't give charity. Hashem destroyed Sodom. For being so miserly, but they have so much. So the Gemara says, you know why? They worried. Why was it a capital crime to give charity? Because they felt being so wealthy, the whole world doesn't come to Sodom and they're going to be depleted. It's a question of pikuach nefesh. It's going to be like the plague of the locust. They're going to come in and strip us of everything. So it's a question of survival. We have to keep the poor out because otherwise we're all in jeopardy. So anybody who makes the breach in that dam, we're all damned. Therefore, it was a capital crime in Sodom to give charity. You understand this warped way of seeing it? That's why they wouldn't give tzedakah. And therefore, Hashem says, if that's the way you see it through such a corrupted, perverted, distorted lens, I'm going to wipe you off the face of the earth. That's the Gemara. That's the Gemara in Sanhedrin. So the miser, he has his perverted, distorted way of seeing things. As much as he has, he doesn't give. What's the lesson? I wish I could give you. I'm sorry, I don't have. That's how we save space. Hashem says, you know something? There's going to be leprosy. Your house is going to be destroyed. And before you destroy it, because we don't want the vessels to become contaminated, you're going to put everything out in public view, and then you can destroy the house. So people then will see the reality of who you are. But what's the lesson? Why is he suffering this embarrassment? I mean, here, effortless, the house is destroyed, all of a sudden you find this treasure. What's the lesson that should be learned? Whatever you have, it's because it's God-given. It has nothing to do with you. You have to do what you're supposed to do. Giving will not cause you to have less, because whatever you have is because Hashem gives. Proof in the pudding, your house is destroyed, everything's taken, and what do you find in the wall? You find a treasure. That's the lesson of this miserly person. It's not you. It's not you have to protect what you have. Whatever you have, it's because it's God-given. That's why you have it. Proof is, here the house is destroyed, you find wealth in the walls. It's only that kind of person needs that wealth to give him that clarity, understanding of how everything comes about.